is Brannon House Live. Whether the issue is law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, government, or national security, Brannon brings the issues of the day into clear focus through the lens of a Judeo-Christian worldview. And now, here is your host, Brannon House.
And welcome to Brannon House Live on this May 6, 2025. That is a beautiful picture of the Blair House as they're pulling in the Canadian flag tonight. I don't know why they're pulling in the Canadian flag. Apparently that was being used earlier in the day by the Prime Minister of Canada. They had a car right there at the front gate. So apparently he is not coming back there to stay. Maybe he's going to the Canadian Embassy. I don't know. His motorcade pulled out, about an hour and a half ago, hour and 15 minutes ago, his motorcade pulled out with all of the motorcycle cops in all the cars and everything. It goes in a big old motorcade. I don't know if he was going to dinner, if he was going to back to the Canadian Embassy. I don't know. But they have just pulled in the Canadian flags you saw. Logan, they're about to put out the American flag. Some of you say, what is the Blair House? Well, I'm glad you asked. By the way, we got a big interview tonight with Marjorie Taylor Greene. We were up on Capitol Hill tonight. We got that interview, and we'll be bringing that to you here in just a few minutes. But they're about to put out the American flag as we're here tonight. We also have an interview coming up with Ann Vandersteel as well. And in doing a little bit of history here with you in D.C., we'll bring a recording of that to you, something we did today. But yeah, they're putting out the American flag. They brought in the Canadian flag, bringing out the American flag. We had no idea this was going to happen. Just as the music started, boom, that happened. What is the Blair House? Some of you might ask. Well, it is a house that's right across the street from the White House. We talked about it a little bit tonight on Washington Report with Jim Paff. But it's a home that was built. It's been around for a long time. There's some history there related to Robert E. Lee and a meeting he had there related to the Civil War. It is known as the most exclusive hotel in at least America, because it belongs to the president, at least his ability to use it. It belongs to the government, but he has custody of it, just like he does the White House or Camp David. And of course, many presidents, including President Trump himself, stayed there right before he was sworn in the next day. So this past January, he would have stayed there the night before he was sworn in as president of the United States. Dignitaries and other people that President Trump or any president wants to stay there can stay there. I think when we were here back in 2005 for the Bush administration, I think one of President Bush's brothers and some of the family were staying there. But that's the Blair House. It's right across the street from the White House, which is just right there. Right behind me is the old executive office building. We talked about that tonight on Worldview Washington Report, so we won't spend a lot of time on it. But that used to house a bunch of branches, the Navy, the Army. That's why it's got cannons out front. It used to house a bunch of branches of the military. They outgrew it, and it became known as the old executive office building. I think it changed to the Dwight Eisenhower building, and I think they started calling it that in '99. They confirmed that in 2002 as the name. About 2,000 executive office employees work there for President Trump or any acting president, serving president. And it also houses the ceremonial office of the Vice President of the United States. I mentioned tonight on Worldview 2 Washington Report that President Nixon had what they called a hideaway office there. President Nixon liked to go over there, I guess, hide out. So here we are broadcasting on what we thought was pretty cool, because during the Washington Tube Report, Worldview Tube Report, it was flying the Canadian flag, and the Prime Minister Carney had been using it, I guess, to relax in and had meetings here at the White House today. So anyway, that's where we're at tonight. Well, like I said, we have a big show tonight. We got Marjorie Taylor Greene. We got a chance to catch up with her on Capitol Hill tonight. Also, we talked to Ann Vandersteel and Maureen Steele, no relation, but they're friends. And Ivan Raiklin stopped by. They had a press conference in front of the Department of Justice today. A press conference. You'll say about what? They're starting an organization known as the Department of Government Accountability. And they are working with about 1,000 attorneys and a few retired judges, some of them who are coming out of retirement, to help them, draft a strategy for bringing the country back under the Constitution, being a fully constitutional republic. I visited with them after I attended their press conference today. I visited with them out in front of the Department of Justice. Right to our right was the FBI headquarters, the J. Edgar Hoover building. I pre-recorded an interview with them while we had them. They invited us to this. We were actually busy doing something else. I'll tell you what we were doing. We were over at the Washington Hilton, and I took Logan and Melissa over there, and we filmed the very spot of the March 30th, 1981 assassination attempt against President Ronald Reagan. I had been spending years studying this, and particularly the last few weeks, I was studying the wall. There's a big brick wall or stone wall, of which is a big retaining wall too. And President Reagan walked out of the Washington Hilton from what was called the President's Walk. It's a walk where presidents come in and out for better security, but they didn't have enough security that day, and Hinckley was able to get within 15 feet of President Reagan and got off, I think, 6 rounds, one of them ricocheting, it said, off the limo and into the left armpit of President Reagan. Well, I was able to study the wall, the brick wall, before coming to D.C. and said, I think I can identify where that brick is based on President Reagan. He was waving with his right hand right before the shot. Then when someone called his name, Mr. President, Mr. Reagan, whatever they did, he waved with his left hand. That's when he was shot. Well, based on where his hand was and his thumb was while he was waving with his right hand headed toward his limo, he did that, and I was able to line that up with that very distinct stone on that wall and show Logan that's the same stone. I showed the picture. So we were able to, based on the measurements we've been given in various historical books and videos and pictures, there are 3 networks they're filming, so we got a lot of footage of this. I think we're pretty close to being able to recreate where Ronald Reagan was standing that day as he was walking the 30 feet from the door to the back door of his limousine when he was shot. We'll also show you where the Secret Service agent Timothy McCarthy was standing before he heard the shots and then turned around to shield the president, to put his body between the shooter and the president, taking a bullet in the chest. Many people think he got shot in the stomach because he grabbed his stomach, but the bullet, I think, was one of those explosive bullets, and it fragments and went down, so he grabbed his stomach. I interviewed him several years ago extensively, and he was not wearing a bulletproof vest that day. After that, the Secret Service were mandated to wear those, and we're going to be taking several of the interviews I've done with Michael Reagan about that day, the Secret Service agent that took the bullet for Reagan, Mr. McCarthy, Timothy McCarthy. We'll take those and we're going to put them into a short format documentary, maybe about 30-minute documentary on that fateful day, March 30th, 1981. President Reagan had only been sworn in in January 20th. So of January, February, March, he'd been sworn in, 60 days or so. So January, February, He'd only been president about 60 days, maybe a little more than 60 days, actually, when he almost died. He came very close to dying. If it wasn't for the quick reaction of the Secret Service agent, Mr. Parr, who quickly shoved him into the car, and, of course, the turning of Mr. McCarthy, who took a bullet, he wouldn't be alive. And then, of course, the swift action of the Secret Service to not go back to the White House, where they said they were taking Rawhide, his Secret Service code name, and they diverted because of the frothy blood coming out of Reagan's mouth. Mr. Parr, Agent Parr, said, no, we're going to the Washington hospital. And so they did. Great response by Mr. Parr twice to make him duck and get into the limousine, and then the decision to get him to the White House, or to the hospital versus the White House. Some say if he'd gone to the White House, he would have probably not made it. He needed a medical attention immediately. In fact, it's said that by Mr. Parr pushing the president down and into the car, that it, again, could have been the difference between a fatal headshot and not, because of all the 6 rounds that Hinckley, I think it was 6, he squeezed off, only 15 feet from the president. So today we went over there to show you all that, film all that, and narrate it. And it's a historical site for sure. A lot of people don't know about it. Logan, he's 22. He didn't know about it. I was in 5th grade the day that happened. And a lot of Americans now today in their 30s and 40s, they don't really know much about it. It's a I think, a very important part of history, just as right here at the Blair House, by the way, 1950. President Truman was living in that building for 4 years while the White House was being remodeled. And in 1950, some, I think, Puerto Rican dissidents, some guys that were upset, tried to get in there to take out President Truman. A Secret Service agent returned fire, killing one of them. He himself died, sadly, from his wounds right there on that sidewalk. So these are all historical stories about our country people should know. But providentially, I think it's an important story because I think providentially God saved the life of Ronald Reagan. And look what he went on to do in the next 8 years. Only a little over 60 days into his administration that happened. Can you imagine if we had not had Ronald Reagan and his great impact on our country? Providentially saved. He believed it as well. Michael talks about it. President Reagan talked about it. By the way, President Reagan visited Ford's Theater. He visited Ford's Theater just a few days before that assassination attempt, and wrote about it later, how while he was there in that theater, seeing the box where Lincoln sat when he was shot, he thought about it as president, how easy it would be for someone who really was determined to harm the president. And then a few days later, he was shot. But providentially, God saved him the same way I think God providentially saved the life of President Donald Trump when he was running for president back in July of 2024. So anyway, we stopped that to filming to go and watch this press release at the Department of Justice outside with Ann and Maureen and Ivan, and I interviewed them, so I'll bring that to you tonight, along with my interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene, as well as some other touring of Washington, D.C. In the meantime, let's go to our national security correspondent, David Pine. He's been tracking all of the issues related to India and Pakistan, among other things. There are reports now, even tonight, that one of the countries has shot down the fighter jet of one of the other countries. We'll see what David knows about this, what it means, as well as catch you up on some other stories. David, welcome. Thanks for joining us here as we're broadcasting in front of the old Executive Office building next to the White House and right across the street from the Blair House that, until a few minutes ago, was flying the Canadian flag. Now it's flying, once again, the American flag. Welcome, David. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Brandon. Thanks for having me. It's great to see you by my old stomping grounds where I used to live about 20 years ago.
Yes, you know, I lived here for 8 years as a kid, and I don't think I could say I missed it, to be honest with you, until I came back. And I don't think I would want to live here, but I sure enjoy the history, because there is history around every corner. So I have to tell you, I was doing this trip really out of, I felt like this is a good trip to do for our network, for our people, for our audience. And I'll take one for the team and go do this. I wasn't expecting to really enjoy it. I was just doing this because I felt like it's something I wanted Logan to experience and see. And again, I wanted to bring our network people to the White House and these places and take advantage of what was going on. But I have to tell you, in the last 24 hours, my attitude has really changed because we just keep running into so many historic spots. So once you've lived here, it does hold a place in your heart. I think that's what you're saying, isn't it, David?
It definitely does. Yeah, I love the history, the political center of gravity. I watched presidential debates there, met all kinds of leaders, former leaders from the Reagan administration. It was a great experience.
Well, I'm glad you're with us tonight, David. Let's go to India and Pakistan. What's the latest you're hearing on that? I was just read that supposedly one of the countries shot down one of the other countries' fighter jets. Have you heard that as well?
I actually hadn't heard that. I heard that India, of course, had launched a huge missile strike, hitting 6 different major targets in Pakistan that they accused of being constituting terrorist infrastructure. And I had heard that Pakistan had just struck back, but I haven't heard the details of that. I believe it was an airstrike. But it's happening in real time, so it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, it is. It's moving fast. The latest report about the airliner going down, the fighter jet going down, you know, is a fairly new report just prior to coming back on air here. What does this mean? I mean, it's two nuclear armed countries going at each other, but certainly they're not going to resort to the nuclear option, are they?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think certainly there's a heightened risk of a nuclear exchange whenever two nuclear powers strike each other. But it really depends on how severe the strikes are. You know, they've had border clashes off and on over the last, obviously since, you know, their creation in 1948. You know, they obviously have had nuclear weapons for some time, for over 2 decades in each party's case. But I think both of them have a vested interest in avoiding a nuclear conflict, because they each have the power to wipe out tens of millions of each other's citizens. So I think this will be controlled, but there's certainly a possibility of higher escalation, and that's something we don't want to see. I think it's something that President Trump doesn't want to see, and I think he should prioritize trying to mediate an end to that conflict as well.
Gordon Chang tweeted out a couple hours ago that India just hit China's proxy, Pakistan, hard. Will China now retaliate? I have Gordon Chang booked for radio tomorrow at 1 Central, 2 Eastern Standard. So it'll be interesting to visit with Gordon Chang about that. What do you make? India just hit China's proxy, Pakistan hard. Will China now retaliate? David?
Well, what's so interesting about India and Pakistan is they're formal allies as part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and have been since 2022, when they were admitted to the SCO. But of course, they've never been allies. They've always been rivals, if not enemies. India is a historic Russian ally. They have a very strong and military alliance with Russia going back to the Soviet days in 1960, whereas Pakistan has always aligned itself with China, going back to, I think, Mao Zedong. So you could also say that Russia, Russia's ally hit China's proxy very, very strongly as well. So I don't think it's necessarily there's a real Russia-China dynamic there, because Russia and China are among the closest of allies in the world today.
Let's talk about a tweet you put out not too many hours ago, and that is Iran. The U.S. does not have the ability to take out Iran's underground nuclear missile silos using conventional weapons alone. You go on to state they are deep underground. You've been reporting that on our broadcast now for several months, and you say that and while B-2 launched 30,000-pound GBU 57A bombs might succeed in taking some of Iran's underground missile arsenal out, most would likely survive. Even a sustained 1-week bombing campaign of the kind that is reportedly being envisioned. Go on and tell us about this latest report and what you think we should and should not be doing.
Well, I think there's really no real rationale, a legitimate or defensible rationale for the U.S. to strike Iran's nuclear missile sites right now. There's really 2 schools of thought, I guess. There's there's 3 really. One is Iran has suspended its nuclear program. That's what Tulsi Gabbard testified to. The other is, it's just on the verge of developing nukes, and if we don't act immediately, they'll have nukes within, days or weeks. And then the other is what I've been saying is that they've had nukes for quite some time, and they've, it turns out nuclear deterrence works. Who would have realized it? It doesn't matter if it's Iran, North Korea, Russia, or China. The U.S. and our allies' nuclear deterrence have been more than sufficient to deter any Iranian nuclear use against Israel or any other U.S. ally in the region. So I think we really need to tone down, the rhetoric here. I think I certainly am supportive of the Trump administration's efforts to try to negotiate a deal with Iran, and within limits. It's okay to threaten, but it shouldn't be this really bombastic threats that you have. Essentially, there's about 2 weeks left in Trump's 60-day timeline, and once that expires, he's going to have egg on his face if he doesn't bomb them. But I'd much rather he issue some kind of postponement or announce a deal, as you and I were discussing earlier today, perhaps discussing it or releasing an interim news of an interim nuclear pact with Iran to avert war. Rather than take us to war, which could result in a massive Iranian cyber or terrorist attack on the U.S. homeland.
You also wrote today, after the U.S. wasted $5 billion and at least 800 long-range precision strike munitions over a nearly 3-month-long campaign, President Trump has announced that the Houthis have capitulated and agreed to a ceasefire. However, it's more likely that the U.S. sought the ceasefire with the Houthis so they could spin it as a victory, as we were unsuccessful in defeating them. The ceasefire does not apply to Israel, which is continuing to exchange missile strikes with the Houthis. Wait a minute now, David. Are you telling me that the United States military cannot take down the Iranian proxies of the Houthis? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Of course, we withdrew from Afghanistan in disgrace, in 2021 after fighting there 20 years. One of the mightiest armies on the planet, the United States Army, which I proudly served as a U.S. Combat Arms Officer, was unsuccessful in defeating, the Afghan Taliban rebels. And the Houthis are much more formidable. They have, hypersonic, near hypersonic missiles, Mach 4 anti-ship and ballistic and cruise missiles. This almost 90-day bombing campaign has really, it certainly has degraded the Houthis' capabilities to some extent, but they're far from defeated, and there's really no chance that we could defeat them. And, the real, you can see whose terms the ceasefire was based on by the fact that the Houthis have not committed to the U.S. to stop attacks on international shipping at all, which was the very cause for which Trump supposedly started this campaign against them in the first place. They've only agreed to stop their attacks on U.S. shipping.
And why is it? Why is it the Houthis can't be defeated by us?
Well, they do have underground missile sites, much like Iran. They've learned their lesson from the days of Saddam in Iraq, where we were able to destroy much of their army and military and missile sites because they weren't protected. They weren't protected by substantial air defenses or underground facilities. So it really would take a U.S. invasion of Yemen, Houthi-occupied or controlled Yemen, for us to take them out. We could potentially use the rebels, or I guess the Trump administration would say the rightful government, the Saudi U.S.-backed rebels against the Houthis, to conduct kind of the same type of campaign we saw in Afghanistan, which was successful in evicting the Taliban for 20 years. But that was only possible with the presence of U.S. troops over 2 decades. So I think short of the insertion of tens of thousands of U.S. troops, it's just not going to be possible for us to defeat the Houthis. And as a result, we need to find a way, a diplomatic solution, which is more long-term, and that can only be done with Israel's cooperation in enforcing Phase 2 of the ceasefire agreement, which was negotiated by Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, the day before he was inaugurated.
All right, and then lastly, David, in an interview with The Atlantic magazine late last month, President Trump expressed his belief that Ukraine will be crushed very shortly by Russia's big war machine if Zelensky continues to refuse to lift his ban on peace negotiations with Moscow. By the way, the president announced today they had a big announcement coming Wednesday, Thursday or Friday, maybe Monday, before he heads to the Middle East. Is it related to this, or is it related to Iran?
It's really hard to say. I would say there's probably no chance that it's related to a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine that's long term. There's just no evidence of that. It's certainly possible that he could have twisted Zelensky's arm to have him make some big concession that puts us closer on the way to on the road to peace with Russia. But I think that's probably unlikely. My greatest hope would be that it's an interim agreement between the U.S. and Iran on Iran's nuclear program. I think that would be a great achievement that could steer us away from a potential regional war that could cost thousands, if not millions, of American lives. But Trump's exactly right. Ukraine is on the ropes. It's very close to being crushed. I'm writing an article right now about what I am predicting will be a massive Russian spring and summer offensive that will likely overrun much of eastern Ukraine and perhaps even, partially surround Kyiv again later this summer.
dpine.substack.com, dpine.substack.com, and then follow him on X as well. What's your X handle, David?
X handle is at America First Con, C-O-N.
At America First Con, C-O-N, and dpine.substack.com. David, as always, thank you for your reporting.
Thanks, Brandon. Great to be with you.
You too. David Pine checking in tonight. Now, don't forget, we have Ivan Raiklen, Maureen Steele, and Ann Vandersteel coming up, and also an interview, exclusive interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene, U.S. Congresswoman from Georgia, on Capitol Hill today. We'll bring that to you. Hey, we're in Washington. It is not cheap to bring the motor coach here, bring a driver here with us. We have to have a driver take us around, drop us off, because parking is a bear. So you have to have a driver with you at all times to be able to literally sometimes circle the block for an hour or two while we're doing what we're doing, and then or go find parking somewhere far away and come back when we call them. Otherwise, you'd never get it done, hauling equipment in and out of buildings. I mean, I know you see me standing with a microphone, but there are multiple pieces of equipment standing here and sitting all around that have to be set up wherever we go, and it takes a team to do it, and it takes money. If you appreciate the fact we're doing this, we need your support now. Please help us, because we would like to do more of this. We have been talking, even while here, about some other places we'd like to go, film, get some great documentary footage to bring you special programming. Please don't forget, a lot of what we're doing here is not just interviewing people. In fact, the bulk of what we're doing is grabbing historic footage, like today at the Washington Hilton and other places we have been, and you're going to be getting a lot of free educational historical programming in the coming weeks here when we get back into the Mid-South to start post-editing it. If you appreciate what we're doing and you want to help us cover the cost of this so that we can cover the cost and then plan more trips like this, we need your support now. WorldviewFoundation.com. That's one way you can support us. WorldviewFoundation.com. You also find our mailing address there. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you also find the phone number there, and you can call and leave a voicemail or text Melissa. She'll call you back if you'd like to make a contribution over the phone. If you do make a contribution, we'll be sure to send you a receipt for your taxes on or around February 1st of 2026. WorldviewFoundation.com. Another way you can support us is by going to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. All our great sponsors there: Bella Grace, Gatatana, Numi, WorldviewWater.net. What else we got there, guys? Gold, Worldview Gold. Is that what it is? WorldviewGold.com. Bella Grace, I mentioned them. Who else am I missing? Gatatana, I mentioned them. I'm losing my... Numi, Swish for Life, Numi, it's all there. WorldviewTube.com/sponsors. We're taking the Numi, the Bella Grace, and the Gatatana all while on the road here, because we want to stay healthy, and we need it because we're physically walking like we've not walked in a long time. So help us out one or two ways: Foundation or worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Find our sponsors there. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Come back. We'll go to our interview, don't you think, with Maureen and Ann and Ivan, and then with Marjorie Taylor Greene, reporting from Washington. Brandon House. We'll be right back after this break.
July 6, 2005. This is Tom Harper. Man figures plankton stopped his rare cancer. We got more of a response from our viewers than anything else you and I have ever discussed.
Tom Harper, 20 years ago, he had mesothelioma, deadly lung cancer, was given weeks to live, and he just intuitively started to eat the phytoplankton out of his fish tanks because he fed the phytoplankton to his shellfish. He was a shellfish farmer. And when he went in for the surgery, the surgeon came out of the operating room and told his family, "I have not ever seen anything like it. The cancer is benign." And Tom Harper lived for years. He retired in Hawaii. We're not making any claim.
Here he is in his own words.
Started on a daily routine of just taking a bit of paste, putting it in my mouth, and wash it down with a drink of water. Within about 10 to 15 days, here I am, less pain in my back. I knew that something was going on, so I just kept eating half a teaspoon of this paste a day. I was booked to go for surgery in Victoria, where they were going to do what they call a talc treatment. They went in there to have a look, saw something they'd never seen before, took 11 sites, sent them away for biopsy. I got the news back. Everything was benign. They were just did not know what to make of it. Everything was absolutely clean. And I've tried dieting all my life because I'm a diabetic. If it's a coincidence or not, I don't know. My blood sugar started dropping. My weight started falling off. Here I am, no longer requiring insulin, and I was taking 88 units a day of insulin. I eat just about what I want in moderation, and I have no elevated sugar levels, and I feel fabulous.
People, you hear the word cancer and they want you to be instilled with fear. Cancer is nothing but a profound failure of the immune system. And what happened with Tom Harper is the phytoplankton is microscopic. It's God's microscopic food. And the Gaditana is the most nutritionally comprehensive strain phytoplankton in the world. David Hunter studied phytoplankton for 20 years because he worked for Tom Harper and he was there in person and witnessed Tom's recovery. It's about getting pure nutrition inside your cells. And what happens, your body balances again or goes back to homeostasis. And when your body is pH balanced or in homeostasis, disease can't grow. It is literally microscopic, pure single cell plant food with protein and omega-3 fatty acids, omega-6 fatty acids, with amino acids and vitamins and minerals. 1 scoop a day. There's 90 billion plant cells in here just for everyday nutrition and energy and, cognitive support, because this is God's pure nutrition.
Go to melissahousegpa.com today. Discover the science and learn more about the wonderful benefits of Gaditana phytoplankton. That's melissahousegpa.com. melissahousegpa.com.
All right, we're pre-taping this for Brandon House Live tonight because obviously it's daylight, because there was just a press conference here. Maureen Steele, Ann Vandersteel, and Ivan Raiklin, where they got a permit. They pulled a permit, they did it by the book, and they did a press conference here in front of the Department of Justice. Literally across the street to my right is the headquarters of the FBI, the J. Edgar Hoover building. So, folks, I obviously stood back here, listened, but our audience would like to know, what was your press conference about today? You want to start, Ann?
Sure. Very simply, Brandon, it was launching the American Made Action organization, which is co-founded by myself and Maureen Steele. And American Made Action brings together a people-led movement under the Department of Government Accountability, and we're also bringing together about 1,000 members of the legal community under the United Law Coalition. And together, the people using common law and the professionals from the legal institutions are coming together to address the accountability issues that have not been addressed in this country for quite some time. We've seen a legal profession, bar card carrying mafia members in the black robes weaponized against we the people. We've seen our agencies weaponized against we the people. Frankly, we've had lawless government. And so this is the opportunity for the people to come together with the legal representatives and weed out and hold those members accountable. We're starting with CPS, and we think the children need to be saved. And the Child Protective Services has been one of the most egregious agencies in our country that has been weaponized against families. And they have done more harm to destroying families than they have in helping families. And it's all because of the money. And so Maureen and I are targeting the institution that is funding Child Protective Services, which is the Social Security Administration Title IV funding. And this is the genesis of what we're doing, but it's much bigger.
And, of course, CPS is all over the country. So are you wanting the Department of Justice to get involved in researching and investigating CPSs across the country in various states? Is that what you're asking for?
Thanks, Brandon. We would love to see them do something, but I think what we've witnessed in recent years is that they have no intention of doing that. All of these agencies, along with the lower courts, they're unconstitutional. These family courts, probate courts, these criminals in black robes that sit on the benches of these courts know that their courts themselves are unconstitutional. And so the fact they don't operate by due process. When you go in those courts, there's no presumption of innocence. These are your unalienable civil rights, and they can't be stripped, period. They take people's children away with no trial by jury. Our Constitution says you can't do that. This is done every day in our country. Last July of 2024, the Supreme Court overturned the Chevron deference, basically saying to these agencies and CPS, and to the judges, you can no longer rubber stamp what these agencies say. They can't interpret the law, they can't make law. And that is what these agencies continue to do. CPS comes in with an emergency injunction or any piece of paper. There is no trial, there's no hearing. They rubber stamp it, and they send out their goons to go take children away and put them in foster homes. One of the most egregious things is a lot of the children leave good families and get trafficked into foster care. And I'm not saying all foster homes are bad, but I will tell you 85% of children who get into foster homes are sexually or physically abused. That's a problem in the system. Mike Pompeo brought it to the attention of the president when he was Secretary of State, that the foster care system and CPS are the largest purveyors of sex-trafficked children in our country, and that's never been looked into. This was years ago. This is a real problem. These agencies are a huge problem, and we're going to weed it out. We can't count on the government. This is the swamp, and we will do it ourselves. And the government derives its power from we the people. And so the people have showed up. The cavalry has arrived.
And Maureen and Ann and Ivan, what you're saying, I know in part to be true. I know that's true. You haven't said anything yet, but I know what them two are saying. Those two are saying to be true so far, because back in the early mid 1990s, I was interviewing State Senator Nancy Schaefer, and I even had her speak. I don't remember what year it was. I don't know if it was the year 2000, 2001, I can't remember. Does you remember what year she died? She died in 96, so it wouldn't have been 2000, 2001 then. So, wow, So some point there, after I started interviewing her, I had her speak from one of my Worldview weekends in Atlanta, Georgia. We were at, I think, Church of the Apostles, and the pastor there is Michael Youssef still. And we held it there in their church, and she came and spoke. And she had been working with Phyllis Schlafly, right, and warning about the fact that the child foster services in these states make money. They make money, and they would take the children from families that were generally poor families or poorer or lacking in financial resources to be able to fight back. And then she said they're making money trafficking these kids into families who then make money keeping them, but at the process they got abused. But do I have all that right, the way she was explaining it?
Oh, yes.
And then, of course, so they're saying yes. I'm going to hand you back to Mike. Then she is found shot dead in her bed with her husband, and we're told it was a murder-suicide. But the gun doesn't, supposedly he went out and bought another gun to do the crime by when he owned guns. There's a lot of things. One of the guys who wrote, I think, the first article on this was Garland Favorito. He knew her. He wrote one of the first articles on this. I didn't know Garland at the time. Of course, I got to know him through his whole voter GA and voter fraud thing. But Garland knew her. She died under very, very suspicious circumstances. So Phyllis Schlafly was having her speaking for Eagle Forum very often. She knew this to be true, and this was back in the 90s.
Yeah, this is a problem that's been going on really since the 90s. Hillary Clinton wrote the Adoption and Safe Family Act, and like most acts that these politicians write, they look very good on the outside. It's all nice and shiny, but behind the scenes, there's an ulterior motive. And really, it was that put a price tag on children's heads. That's when the mandatory reporters came in, and all of that. And all that is hearsay. If you're a teacher in a classroom and you see a kid with the bruise, what they tell you at the beginning of the year is, if one of your students has a bruise and you don't know where it came from, you must report it. So what they do is once CPS gets that, it's a screen in or a screen out. Most of these should be a screen out because there's no evidence, but they swoop right in there and they take these kids, and these families are in for hell for 5-10 years, and they spend sometimes millions of dollars, but usually hundreds of thousands. Some of them never get their children back, and there's no evidence of abuse, nothing. So this is just it's state-sanctioned kidnapping is what it is.
Okay, let's bring Ivan into this. Ivan, you're a former Green Beret, and you're an attorney, correct? retired Green Beret, and you're an attorney, right?
Yes, sir.
And
I'm speaking in my personal capacity, always.
okay, speaking of your personal
Unless
capacity,
I'm not.
unless you're not. Okay, you'll tell us. You'll make it evident when you're not. Okay. So tell us, why were you here, and what are you doing with these two fine ladies?
So the whole concept of accountability.
I'll let you hold the mic.
Yeah, so thank you. So government accountability. A lot of people know me as the Secretary of Retribution, right? Again, America's Secretary of Retribution. No affiliation to really anybody else. It's just a movement. It's a meme, if you will, right? But that meme essentially stands for the maximum lawful synonym for what we all want, which is justice, accountability, comeuppance, right? And we've already seen the evidence. Every single person that watches your show more than once, they've already seen all the evidence of the crimes, of the treason, of the mutiny, of the entire process of the destruction of our constitutional order and principles, deprivation of rights under the color of law, whether it's the CPS issues, right? And so now it's time to move beyond just, oh, look, there's a crime, and we all know it. So the jury pool is clamoring now. You guys have a White House pass, a congressional pass. So now it's our time to take and mobilize that jury pool, the American jury pool, now that we've broken through the censorship, and bring them into the courtroom so that the jury and we, the people, as we bring these things forward, can now educate the manipulated, curated, and censored information that the judges and their staff received over the last few years, to break that veil and explain to them through legal process that, yes, they were traitors, and now they must be held to account to the maximum level. Now, I always advocate for the most unconventional and aggressive accountability, okay? And it's maybe has something to do with being a Green Beret. You know, I like unconventional warfare. Let's just say I incorporate the training and apply it to our legal constitutional process and system. And how do we effectuate that? Well, we leverage the Article 1 branch of government with our allies there. Very few. You interviewed two of them yesterday, I heard. Has that been aired yet?
Senator Ron Johnson.
Senator Ron Johnson.
Senator Tommy Tuberville. Aired last night.
Senator Tuberville, number one in terms of keeping out the didn't earn it, conniving racism training issues within the Department of Defense as much he could as his individual senator on the Armed Services Committee, and then Ron Johnson as it applies to the CCP-19 jab mandate. Oh, by the way, I'm being sued, but we'll talk about that later.
Well, you might have mentioned it now.
As a precursor. But bottom line here is that we must all mobilize together. And I can't do this by myself. President Trump can't do it by himself. Ann Vandersteel can't do it. Maureen can't do it by herself. And we have a big enough voice in the collective. In between just the three of us, and now we reach probably tens of millions of people over the course of a month. And that's when it starts to that is enough to bring attention, especially when we're right out here. The person that sits at the top of this organization, she's going to have to respond at some level. Because it's not only us, WVW. Steve Bannon is with Tom Fitton yesterday demanding the same thing. Meaning, okay, talk of accountability, we're done with that. We want literally what I said last year when I was talking to that NPR National Poison Radio reporter.
Oh, they were talking to you?
Yeah, at the weaponization hearing. They tried, but I gave them a lesson on it. And basically,
have other outlets reached out to you?
Oh, the New Oak Slimes tries to get a hold of me last couple days, yeah. Constantly. I don't talk to them. They have not earned our attention because they've been wrong on every single major issue over the last 8 years. So they're scum of the earth. I only talk to professional truth tellers, right? And so do you guys. But going back to your question, I know it's long. We're mobilizing through our networks the guaranteeing of accountability. Even more so than what they did illegally to us. It has to happen.
And of course, I see Ann here, you're media. You have a legal background, and he has a legal background. So you guys you're not being rogue. You're trying to go by the letter of the law and by the state constitutions and by the U.S. Constitution, correct?
When when the government is weaponized against the people and they war against us through warring against the Constitution, and we are deprived our rights, our unalienable rights as given to us by God and defined and codified by the Bill of Rights, we have a problem. And the people are the government. It says it clearly, Brandon. We the people in our Constitution. And we agree to allow them, our public servants, to govern us. But they have to do it as we wish. And they haven't been listening to us for a long, long, long time. And so now we're getting louder and louder, and we're organizing, and we're focusing, and we're using common law, very simple, plain English common law, to notice the government in very precise language what we want and what we expect. And they should expect to be noticed by the millions in a variety of issues. But we're going to organize, and we're going to send messages, very focused messages, like a JDAM, into certain agencies. And we're starting with CPS because the children have suffered, families have suffered, and that's the backbone of this country. God created man and said, go forth and multiply, and he gave us dominion over the land, the air, and the water. That's our law book. And it has been ignored, and it has been discarded, and it's time we bring it back. And don't treat it the way Nancy Three Martinis Pelosi would, as an old relic document that needs to be changed. It is very well ordained to present and defend our constitutional rights. And so that's what the Department of Government Accountability is. It's the People's Movement, United Law Coalition. It's for the legal professionals who understand that the law was weaponized against we the people.
And just one thing, I want to make sure our audience knows, you have 1,000 attorneys and some judges that are a part of this organization you're calling the Department of Government Accountability?
Yes, and then we have the United Law Coalition that comes in under that.
And who is that?
That is us.
Okay.
It's part of us. But this is where the 1,000 lawyers come in. We have paralegals, common law experts. We've had 2 retired judges, come out of retirement to help with strategy, to help with crafting, documents and all of that. So it's an incredible force. In our history, this has never happened. We'll take our republic back. We have 2 years to do it. We're running out of time, but we will do it.
Now, before I get to you, why you say 2 years? Because after that, we have midterms, right?
Yes, exactly right. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just to add to what Ann said, basically we're at a point where, yes, we won the White House, supposedly, right? The White House is good most of the time, but the institutions underneath the White House are not so good. They're so rotted and corrupted.
Who would you like to have seen as Attorney General?
I mean, there's a number of people that, I'm going to say this. We moved from a tyrannical regime to installing mostly beta cucks into this department, meaning cowards, right? Toxic, feckless, stone cold cowards. And Mike Davis would come to mind as an Attorney General. Sidney Powell would come to mind as an Attorney General.
Who, by the way, is speaking at my fall conference. Can I do a plug here? Speaking at my fall, I know you didn't know that. I can't pass it up. She's speaking at my fall conference, October 3rd and 4th, our 22nd annual National Worldview Weekend in Collierville, Tennessee, just outside of Memphis, which, by the way, Senator Tuberville yesterday, Tuberville, when we said where we were from, he's like, oh, I love the golf courses right in Germantown, Tennessee, and that area. I know that's where we're right on. We live right on that line right there, Germantown and Collierville. And so he was complimenting our area, which we don't get a lot of compliments in Memphis. A lot of people like to talk bad about our town, but we live in the suburbs, so it'll be safe. It'll be safe. Come to the suburbs. The hotels are listed on the website. There's only 350 seats available in this theater we've rented, and already 100 are gone. So you might want to hurry up, because Sydney will be there speaking in person, and I've specifically asked her to speak on the weaponization of the DOJ. So by then you're saying maybe by then Pam Bondi has been let go, and now it's Sidney Powell's Attorney General?
Unless
that would be a problem for my conference, though.
It will be, but it'll be better for America. So I'll say this: the third kind of draft pick for the AG is if Ed Martin is not confirmed as the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, I think he might become the AG. Why not?
Why not?
Wow. And of course, I think that. Wow. I mean, Ann's liking that. I think that.
You want to play hardball, America?
I think. Well, so you don't want him as U.S. District Attorney. President Trump says we're appointing him as Attorney General.
And then Pam will have to find
a new job. Yeah. Oh, well, she got to be a judge. Where is she going to go?
She'll probably have to go over to Faux News and then be a news anchor full time.
Okay. So. Unless I have a seat for her? No, my network's pretty full right now. See, now you guys got me all distracted. Ed Martin. Isn't that vote taking place right now as we're speaking, Logan?
No.
No.
Right
When does that vote take place?
I believe May 20th.
2 weeks. Was there some kind of hearing though today on that on Capitol Hill? Someone was saying there's a hearing today, but was there not? I don't know. We'll find out. Okay.
Last night I asked a very credible senator who I won't name that I communicate with on a regular basis, and you know who you are, that the vote for some of these things is kind of delayed. You can see it in the court. I think it's being reported by many news outlets because it's very important. I like to remind people that it was the very U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Matthew Graves, that was the one that coordinated with the General Counsel of the U.S. Capitol Police, Thomas Tad DeBias, who's been there forever. He's the deep state of the U.S. Capitol Police that coordinated who they were going to target politically and weaponize against for January 6th. So if they can do that illegally, and we already have seen the evidence over the course of years, it'd be nice to have a U.S. attorney that is ready, willing, and able to go ahead and action what I like to call the deep state target list.
Now, we're recording this. We're going to wrap because we're about to go live on 74 stations, plus World YouTube at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard. And this is going to air on Brandon House Live tonight. So for those of you who want a full hour of this, check back at Worldview Tube, and we'll have a full hour with these guys on Worldview Radio. But that's our segment right now. Do you guys have a website yet, real quick?
Yep. AmericanMadeAction.org.
AmericanMadeAction.org. All right, we're here in front of the Department of Justice across the street from the FBI headquarters.
So, folks, watching this, all right? I literally have nothing to do with this other than I 100% support those that actually put in the 100% work into actually having a press conference and launching Doja, Ann Vandersteel, Maureen. So you got to thank them. Go to their website, support them. They're definitely doing the 99.9% of the work. I just happen to be the carnival barker that brings in some information that they may not have access to.
Valuable edutainment.
All right, we're going to go so we can make it time for radio. Again, reporting from Washington, D.C., because you guys have helped make it possible. Thank you for doing that. WorldviewFoundation.com, WorldviewFoundation.com. If you appreciate us coming here and doing this and covering these kind of events, we need your support. WorldviewFoundation.com. All right, thank you, guys. We'll be right back after this break.
What if there was a product that could help you control cravings, burn more fat, boost your metabolism, promote healthy blood glucose levels, lower inflammation, optimize insulin sensitivity, support healthy blood lipid levels, and support healthy blood pressure? Introducing Bellatrim.
My wife has been taking Bellatrim now, and she said, Brandon, we've really got to promote this because people don't understand this isn't just about a comprehensive weight management. It will help regulate your blood glucose levels. It will lower bad cholesterol. Overall, it's good for your cardiac health. And she said there's a lot of science behind this.
G'day, I'm Dr. Mark Miller for Bella Grace, and I'd like to have a chat with you about Bellatrim, our comprehensive weight management product. Now, most people early on will register a reduction in cravings associated with Bellatrim. How does it do that? Well, it does it by changing the levels of hormones that are associated with either hunger or satiety. It lowers the levels of ghrelin, a hunger hormone, and it raises the levels of GLP-1, the satiety hormone. There is an absolutely fascinating action on a metabolic switch called AMP kinase, AMPK. AMPK is associated with the preferential burning of fat as a metabolic fuel. And as a result, you have a reduction in visceral fat and reduction in waist circumference. It also helps regulate blood glucose. Blood glucose is a huge factor in weight management. It also improves your microbiome. We do that by several ways. One, there's an ingredient in there that stimulates greater diversity, and the other one is prebiotics, FOS and GOS, that help feed the good bacteria, gentrify your microbiome. So, Bellatrim, comprehensive. Enjoy it.
To learn more about Bellatrim and other Bella Grace products, visit melissahousebg.com.
Joining me now is U.S. Congresswoman Marjorie Greene. She's been with us before and in person a few times. Great to have you back. Thank you for being with us here on the grounds of the Capitol.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
You are lighting up the social media world and X, and so many people sending that to me, and they're appreciative that you're speaking up. We've just come from a press conference outside the Department of Justice with several people, and many people are concerned, as you are, about where are we going here. We're well into what now, over 100 days. Tell us about your frustration with the lack of maybe prosecution, the lack of arrest, the lack of investigation. Let's start with that.
Well, they don't let me arrest anybody. I wish they would. No, I'm just kidding. My frustration is here in Congress under, and I don't know if a lot of people know this or not, but under Joe Biden's first 100 days, they sent 11 bills to his desk. 11 bills. One of them included the Democrats' reconciliation bill. They got that done. Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, they worked really hard. In President Trump's first 100 days, we only sent 5 bills to his desk, and one of them was a CR that was continuing the funding from the Biden and Democrats and their policies, Green New Deal, DEI, trans agenda, you name it. So my frustration is we should be getting President Trump's agenda done here in Congress, and Republicans as a whole need to remember what the American people voted for.
And time is slipping by. We got elections coming up, 2026. How concerned are you that the base will be, because you're saying, look, folks, I talked to the base is frustrated. How demoralized do you think the base will be? Although I'm sure they're happy with many things that this administration has done, and I am. Yes. But how demoralized do you think by then some of them may become that we don't have the turnout we need? In other words, are you worried that as we had a problem in 2016 he won because it was too big to rig. 2020 they kind of cooked in there how to take it. 2024 he won because I think, again, too big to rig. Yeah. But if you don't have a huge turnout for midterms, right, doesn't this mean they can steal it and goodbye House of Representatives for the Republicans?
Yeah, here's the issue that I think we have to talk about. President Trump is not on the ballot in 26, and he's not going to be on the ballot in 2028. Republicans need to be able to stand on their own feet, and they've got to understand what the agenda that the people want is. It's not the Republican Party agenda. It's MAGA. It's America First. It's MAHA. This is the agenda that we voted for in November, and it's the Republican establishment doesn't want to do it. And here's what's important. They are wanting to look at President Trump's second administration like a speed bump. They're wanting to get through it, and many Republican establishment people here want to turn right back to their old ways once they're finished with Trump. But we're not going to allow that. The American people will no longer vote for traditional Republican politics because we've rejected it. And just as I'm saying this, here's some examples. We have senators in the Senate who are refusing to confirm Ed Martin, one of President Trump's greatest attorneys, somebody we absolutely love. We could consider him a patriot. And we've got Susan Collins and Tom Tillis and several others saying, no, we won't confirm him. Susan Collins is the chair of appropriations in the Senate. So people need to realize the power structure there. Those that are actually refusing to do President Trump's agenda and his nominations, and it's a real problem. This will not work in the midterms. The American people are not going to vote for a Republican majority that refuses to do the will of the American people. They're just not going to. And if the campaign message, think about this, if the campaign message in 2026 says, oh, vote for Republicans because if you don't, they'll impeach the president. Guess what? We've seen that show twice now, and we could care less. We stand with President Trump always. The Republican Party needs to campaign on what we've accomplished, and it should be the agenda that everybody voted for.
100% agree. You brought it up before I could, and that was Ed Martin. Just again, full disclosure, Ed has sat in and hosted about probably 40 or 50 times on our network for Tamara Scott's program that we produce. And Ed's been in our studio and on radio today on 74 Christian stations. Yeah. I gave out the switchboard for the U.S. Senate and said, folks, if you want him confirmed, you better be calling your 2 U.S. senators and let them know. Why would any Republican not want Ed Martin, who has a strong history of standing for the Constitution? Why? I mean, the fact if anyone would oppose him tells you what they they think about the Constitution, doesn't it?
Well, it tells you also the status of the Republican Party. The Republican Party is not the party of Trump. The Republican Party is still has the establishment. Like I said, they are clinging to it, and they are wanting to ride through his second administration like a speed bump, get past Trump and move on back to what they care about: foreign wars, spending untold amounts of the American people's dollars. They don't care about Doge. They're annoyed with Doge. That's cutting programs that they receive donations for from lobbyists that go all over the hill. So I think I really wanted to sound the alarm, because the wake-up call needs to be given, and the message needed to be delivered right here to the people that I work with here in Washington, is that, look, we are paying attention. And if I'm upset and speaking out about it, you better believe people at home are furious.
So your frustration isn't with President Trump, your frustration with Congress, and then your frustration, correct me if I'm wrong, some of the people that have maybe been allowed to get in and speak into his ear?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm not frustrated with President Trump. I love the president. I've campaigned for him for years and went to more rallies than any elected Republican up here. No. What I'm saying is, and it's really important to say this, is that we stand with President Trump. His executive orders, over 140 executive orders, more than Joe Biden's entire presidency, are exactly what we want. There should be a conveyor belt from the White House to that Capitol out that window right there, and we should be voting on them every single week.
So in other words, put his executive orders into legislation so they can't be overturned with a stroke of a pen by the next administration.
Yeah, the first one is happening this week, and it's my bill that is the Gulf of America Act. First one happening. It's past his 100 days, but it's finally happening, and we're going to be renaming the Gulf of America officially by voting for it in the House. This is an important thing to President Trump. It's so important. He keeps that map right next to his to his desk, the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. Every meeting, every executive order he signs, every press conference, that map is there. And I'm really happy we're finally voting on it, but you're not going to believe this. There's a few Republicans complaining they don't want to.
Ridiculous. Okay, you mentioned foreign wars. Maybe you've never met someone like me. Maybe you have. I'm a strong Christian Zionist. I have a reporter in Israel. I love the Jewish people. I don't always agree with the Israeli government any more than I agree with my government all the time. But I'm not for putting boots on the ground in Israel. And I'm very concerned that if we go after Iran, because I think they have the bomb. One of my former broadcasters, we produced his radio show every week. We produced his TV show, his former CIA analyst, Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, who is the chief of staff of the EMP Congressional Commission. He passed away a few years ago of cancer. We produced his show. He said for a long time, they've already got a bomb. They probably have more. So what I'm saying is, if the excuse is to bomb Iran before they get the bomb, I'm saying if they already have the bomb, then why are we doing it? But number two, I don't want boots in the ground. I have to be consistent. I don't want them in Ukraine. I don't want them in Israel. They can buy stuff from us, but that doesn't make me anti-Semitic. That doesn't make me anything but an American patriot saying I'm for the Jewish people, but we got to be smart about America. And I wonder if some of these folks realize how many terror cells are all over the country just waiting to be awakened. So you can't do this in a vacuum. There's going to be consequences, whether it's the cyber grid or physical attacks. What are your thoughts on what I just said?
Well, we had an open border for 4 years. Exactly. America is definitely vulnerable. I serve on the Homeland Security Committee. The people that came across our border are things that would give you nightmares and make it hard to sleep at night. And that happened under Joe Biden and the Democrats' watch. I think the reality is that Americans today, we care about the drug pandemic that has been pushed on America from the cartels. It has addicted Americans. And you know who's killing Americans every day? The cartels. We care about the mental health crisis in this country, and that's connected to the drug pandemic. We care about our issues here at home. Of course, Israel has a right to defend themselves. Exactly. We stand firmly for that. But you want to know something? They're capable. They're very capable. They have nuclear weapons, and they have a military that is proving their strength literally every single day. I don't think America needs to be involved in that. No, we should not have to go to war with Iran.
And isn't going to a war with Iran, Congresswoman, also going to be an opportunity for China to put an embargo or blockade around Taiwan from where we get so many chips and things? I mean, in other words, at what point are we starting to spread ourselves way too thin?
Well, they lost the narrative a long time ago for many Americans. They told us there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and we never found any. We went into Afghanistan supposedly looking for Osama bin Laden, and guess what? He wasn't there. And we were told that the oil in the Middle East would make us rich. Well, we're $36 trillion in debt today. So any kind of, think about this. I think it's been almost 25 years now that they've been telling us Iran is literally on the verge any day of having a nuclear weapon. And then you hear the scary music come in. Yeah, they've been telling us that, and what you're saying may be true. Iran may already have it. Why wouldn't they already have a bomb? So whether they do or they don't, America doesn't need to bomb Iran. It's not affecting my daily life. Right. It's not affecting your daily life. It's not keeping homeless people off the streets. It's not keeping drug addicts out of the emergency room, and it's not doing anything to fix our $36 trillion in debt. That would only endanger all of our lives and create more instability and, let's face it, let's be real, regime change in another country that America is meddling in. And I'll be real honest, I don't want to fight any foreign war on behalf of another country, especially when our real enemy is down in Mexico and we're doing nothing about that.
And I got two sons, and that's one of them, and he's military draft age, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys that are so eager to go to war, I notice they don't have kids or even sons that are military draft age. That's kind of interesting to me, some of them. Finally, on a positive note, what are your marching orders? What would you like to see the base do? Here's your opportunity to say to our audience, at least, hey, between now and the election of 2026, this is what I want you focusing on. Is it write letters? Is it emails? Is it phone calls? Is it posting on social media? Is it putting out interviews like this? What do you want the base to do so they can get active?
The most important thing the base needs to understand is the election of November 2024 was one simple battle. That was one battle on the battlefield. This is not over with. But I want them to hold Republicans accountable. You don't have to donate or support or vote for anyone unless they're doing their job. And I'm one member of Congress. I am one human being. I can't make everybody up here do what all of us want them to do. I really need the help, and I want the base to get engaged and force Republicans to be accountable for the agenda that we voted for.
Thank you so much for making time for us.
You bet. Thank you.
We'll be right back after this break.
True beauty isn't applied. It's nourished from within. Bella Grace Elixir, a luxurious, scientifically crafted blend designed to restore radiance, vitality, and strength at a cellular level. At the heart of Bella Grace Elixir lies cat's claw, a powerful herb from the Amazon known for its ability to control inflammation and protect collagen. With Verisaw collagen peptides, it goes beyond the surface, stimulating your body's natural collagen production to reduce fine lines, improve skin elasticity, and promote real, visible change. Bella Grace Elixir doesn't stop at collagen. It includes astaxanthin, one of nature's most powerful antioxidants. 6,000 times stronger than vitamin C, astaxanthin protects your skin from harmful UV rays and environmental stress, while locking in hydration and promoting a radiant, youthful glow. Experience the power of nature with Bella Grace Elixir at melissahousebg.com. Discover the science behind Bella Grace Elixir at melissahousebg.com. Read powerful testimonials from doctors and real customers who've experienced life-changing results, and explore other wellness products from Bella Grace. Bella Grace Elixir is more than just a product. It's a solution. Visit melissahousebg.com today.
All right, that's our broadcast tonight. Thank you for joining us here in Washington. We got some more big interviews and historical sites to go to tomorrow. And again, we're all in it, folks. If you're in it with us, we can do it and we keep it going. And we do need your support. WorldviewFoundation.com. WorldviewFoundation.com. We just spent a lot of time plugging products tonight. but you know where they are. Please go get a subscription to any or all of these great products at worldviewtube.com/sponsors, worldviewtube.com/sponsors, or worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Thanks for watching. Till next time, I'm Brandon House. May God save America. Take care.
You are watching Worldview Tube, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brandon House.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brandon House.
And welcome. Glad you guys are with us on this. What is the date today? May 5 or 6? May 6, 2025. We are outside of the U.S. Department of Justice. There's just been a press conference here with Ann Vandersteel, Maureen Steele, no relation though, right? No. And Ivan Reagan. I'll introduce you guys to them more if you don't know who they are. Literally to my right is the J. Edgar Hoover building, the FBI headquarters. They got a permit. And they did have a podium and a sound system. All that's now been taken down and taken away. And they held a press conference today. And we started getting an email. We got an email from one of the RNC people who's in the head of the RNC for one of the states. Emailed me an article at the Gateway Pundit today and said, this is going on in D.C. We know you're there. Maybe you should go over there. Well, we had already heard from Ann to Logan saying, hey, we're going to be doing this. And then I get a call last night from Ivan Reagan, who says that one of the folks that follows him, that follows us, says, hey, House and his team are in D.C. Maybe you guys should all get together. So the public has pretty much demanded, the conservative grassroots has pretty much demanded that we stop what we're doing here in Washington and come over here. They did, because we literally were going to be like, we really like them. We hope they don't get upset with us, but we have other things we're here to do and film. And so when we started hearing from the grassroots, we thought, well, if this is what the folks want, then we'll go over there. So we changed our schedule to come over here today, and hopefully we can get it all in, because we are doing some really cool stuff here in D.C. I want to, before we get to why you guys are here, I'll just tell you, one of the things we were doing before we came over here was we were just at the Washington Hilton, because when I was in 5th grade, March 30th, 1981, I don't think you were even born yet, Ivan.
Which century?
Yeah. What year were you born, Ivan?
1976. I'm a bicentennial baby.
Well, in 1976, I was down here on the mall for the big 200-year anniversary. So I am old. So anyway, in 1981, I was in 5th grade here in Northern Virginia, and I came home from school, and I had just been at the inauguration on the lawn of the Capitol for President Ronald Reagan being sworn in. So here we are, January, February, March, what, 3 months? 3 months later? Not even 3 months, barely a little over 3 months. He's shot. I walk in from school, my parents informed me President Reagan has been shot. I literally remember dropping my book bag and running to the television because I had been following this guy running for president, Ronald Reagan, and went to his inauguration. And here I am in 5th grade, living right outside of D.C., and we were glued to the TV the whole night, obviously, watching that over and over, and of course the days for his recovery. So today, Logan and I and Melissa went to the Washington Hilton, and I've been studying this for so many years, and I interviewed the FBI agent that took the bullet for President Reagan, Timothy McCarthy. And of course, I've interviewed Michael Reagan, who gave my start in talk radio, so many times about it. Wow. But I had never been to the location. Well, I've been studying it intensely the last few weeks, studying the pictures, studying the videos, and we literally came from there filming to come to you. And I'll just tease this for the audience. I was able to study, I hate to use the word I, but I was studying the wall, and then I brought Logan in to help me. So now I can say the word we. We studied the wall of where Reagan walks out of the Washington Hilton. He comes out a door that's known as the President's Walk. It was actually installed after Kennedy was assassinated. Now it's covered with a brick structure where they can pull the garage door down and you can come in and out.
Modern day Oliver Stone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
And we studied the brick there's a brick wall, there's a stone wall. And at one picture, if anyone looks it up online, you'll see that he's waving with his right hand, okay? And I can tell by where his hand is on the wall approximately where he was standing, because the stones are so identifiable. I can identify the stone on the wall that's showing his hand with his hand there with the stone as the backdrop. So I said, Logan, if his hand is in the air and that stone back there that we've identified is the stone because it's particular shape and structure, is this about where he was standing? And Logan's looking through a camera lens and said, back up, come forward. Okay, to the side, boom, you're there. Wow. So we were to figure about where he was standing when he waved with his right hand. Then someone said, Mr. President, Mr. Reagan, he turns and he waves with his left hand. That's when he is shot with a bullet that ricocheted under his left armpit. And Agent Parr shoves him into the limo and makes the fine decision to go right to the hospital, avert from the White House, which saved his life. But also, Timothy McCarthy is standing there, and here's the shot behind him where Hinckley has gotten within 15 feet of President Reagan. Unscreened, has not been screened in. He just walks up and merges in with the press and other people, 15 feet. Timothy McCarthy, the agent, hears the shot and then turns his body around and makes himself as wide as he can and takes a bullet, which I thought was in the stomach, because he grabs his stomach and it lifts him up off the ground. Anyone can see it in the replay on YouTube. When I interviewed him, he said, no, I wasn't shot in the stomach. I was shot in the chest and it went down. It went down. The bullet fragmented and went down. Hinckley was using these very powerful bullets that would like explode. And he wasn't wearing a vest that day. When I asked him about it, he said, don't bring that up. It's a very sticky point with my wife, and he kind of chuckled.
Don't bring that up.
But don't bring it up, he said. But I'd already brought it up. And but then after that, Secret Service agents were mandated wearing these vests. We came very close to losing President Reagan that day. So Logan and I and Melissa went back to that spot this morning, and we filmed a lot of narration, a lot of demonstrations showing you where this all went down, where the limo was parked, the back door. We measured things out. We did a lot of research. There's been books on this. There were 3 different networks filming, so we have a lot of video footage to show you where McCarthy went down, where Secretary Brady went down. Of course, yesterday we gave the audience a tour of the press Brady room at the White House yesterday. For those who didn't watch it, we gave a tour of that and part of the West Wing yesterday at Worldview Tube. So anyway, we have more historical sites because, honest with you guys, be honest, we loved that we got to interview U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville yesterday and Alabama, Ron Johnson from Wisconsin for 21 minutes. That's all at Worldview Tube now. Congressman Glenn Grothman of the 6th District of Wisconsin. Yeah, we've already been set back. We were supposed to be with Marjorie Taylor Greene right now, but we set that back to be on the air, and we're going to get that rescheduled. But we're glad to get all these interviews. But frankly, we have been filming a lot of historical sites because that really interests me, and that will last for years. And I said to Logan, this was 1981. I said, do you know how many people were born but they were too young, or they weren't paying attention, or they now they're adults. This is history, whether it's what Reagan went through, and I think God providentially spared Reagan's life. I think God providentially spared Donald Trump's life. Our country needs to know about these places and things that have happened because I think they're providential moments. So anyway, with all that being said, we interrupted that. We'll get back over there. We interrupted that to come over here, and I'm glad we did because you guys did a fabulous job. So we have a break. So if I do this, that means the music's playing because you guys can't hear the music from the network playing for a break. But with that, Ann, you start off. Tell our audience what it is you guys were doing your press conference about. And again, you pulled a permit here at the Department of Justice to do this.
Thanks, Brandon. We, as American Made Action, we're a 501c4. Maureen Steele and myself are the co-founders, and we pulled the permit to stand here in front of the Department of Justice to let America know that the Second American Revolution has begun. And it is really nothing new. We're not inventing anything new, but what it is the people are coming together under the American Made Action idea of the Department of Government Accountability, a We the People common law-led movement, in tandem with the United Law Coalition, which is 1,000 attorneys and retired judges that have come out of retirement to provide the legal framework and the legal intention and lawsuits, in addition to the People's Common Law Network coming together. And we're going to rout out the crime that has been committed against millions of Americans in the family law courts right here in Washington, D.C., against January 6ers, in the medical malfeasance that happened during COVID, and tax law, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There is so much corruption and crime that has been waged and weaponized by the federal government and state government and local government against we the people for so long. The people have been, sadly, through agencies like the Department of Education, miseducated. And so our intention is to start right now with the Child Protective Services Agency, CPS, and all of its facsimiles across all 50 states. Some of them are DCF, DSS, what have you. And go after those agencies, start with the funding, which comes out of the Social Security Administration, Title IV-E funding, to defund CPS, which